Hello, everyone, and welcome back to your channel of Math and Engineering Made Easy. Today, I decided to go over one previous Regents exam of geometry, and this one was for January 2026. I know that the test would be in a couple of weeks, so I decided to have at least one for you because I did like one for Algebra 1, Algebra 2, and before that I did AP Calc. So I think it's time to do some geometry. The first part, as you know, it's 24 multiple choice questions. Each one is worth 2 credits. So let's go to business and start right away. We have problem number 1. They show you two triangles, RST and R prime S prime T prime. And they say which rigid motion is sufficient to prove that these two triangles are congruent. So what happened here? And you can see if you notice just by inspection, you see that the y-axis is an axis of symmetry, which means that I took one triangle and reflected it over the y-axis, right? Because now it's mirror image. The y-axis is a mirror image of the triangle RST. So rotation, translation, reflection over the x. Reflection over the x would be like that, but reflection over the y would be like that. So it must be number 4. So that's the first one, was an easy one. Let's move to number 2. Okay. Excuse me. Question number 2 says, which regular polygon would carry onto itself after rotation of 60 degrees about its center? Now, how do we know that? Basically, you know that the total interior angle, so if you want to find a 60 degree here would be the exterior angle about which you rotate, right? So if it's 60 degrees, it means that the interior angle is 120 degrees, correct? So if that's the case, we say that, how do we find the 120? We know that for any polygon of n sides and n angles, the total number of angles is 180 times n minus 2. So if n is 3 for a triangle, you know that 3 times minus 2 is 1, times 180 is 180. For a rectangle or a square, n is 4, minus 2 is 2, times 180 is 360, and so on and so forth. So if the total interior angles sum up to 180 times n minus 2, then, and because it's regular, meaning that each one of the n angles should be 180 times n minus 2 over n. And we want the interior angle to be 180 minus 60 or 120 degrees. Now, if we multiply both sides by n, you get 120n equals 180n minus 360. Then you're going to add 360 to both sides. And then you subtract 120n from both sides. So you get 60n equals 360 degrees. You divide by 60 both sides. So you get n equals 6. So it's a hexagon, number 2. Moving to the third one, the right triangle below is continuously rotated about the 4 centimeter side, meaning it's going to rotate like that. So the base would form a circle with a radius of 7. The sides will form a cone, and the height of that cone is 4. The solid formed is a cone with a height of 4 and a radius of 7. Yes, it is. No, the radius is not 14. The diameter would be 14 of the base. And it's not a pyramid, of course. When you move to number 4, it says in isosceles triangle AHP below, AH is congruent to PH, which means that this angle equals that angle. Okay. Then they extended AH to a point C. They give you that the measure of angle A is 2x plus 12, and of angle P is 3x minus 8. But we know that these two are congruent. So before we continue, we can find the value of x, right? So I'm going to write this one first. So we'll have the positive x on the left, the x on the left, 3x minus 8 equals 2x plus 12. I'm going to subtract 2x from both sides. So I get x minus 8 equals 12. Then I'm going to add 8 to both sides. So I get x equals 20 degrees. Okay, so what is the question? What is the measure of angle CHP? CHP. That's an external angle. So it must equal the sum of these two angles, but these two angles are congruent. So it's enough to find the measure of one and multiply it by 2, right? So for example, if x is 20, then 2x plus 12 would be 40 plus 12 or 52 degrees. If you want to check your answer, you say, okay, 3 times 20 is 60, minus 8 is also 52 degrees. So this is 52 degrees, this is 52 degrees. So that external angle would be the sum of both, meaning 52 plus 52, which is 104 degrees, and that's number 3. Okay, pretty straightforward, finding x with simple algebra and knowing the rest. In the diagram below, triangle XYZ is the image of triangle ABC after a dilation of a scale factor of 1/2. Which point must be the center of dilation? Well, since XZ and AC are collinear, it means that the center of dilation must be on this line, right? If it's somewhere else, then XZ and AC wouldn't be collinear. So we know it's somewhere along this line. Well, basically, it's so simple to find the center of AC, the midpoint of AC, or the midpoint of XZ. Both would share the same thing. So maybe XZ is easier since X is on the y-axis, so it has coordinates 0 and 2. Z has coordinates 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 and negative 4. So the midpoint must be its x-axis. Its x-coordinate is 0 plus 4 over 2, which is 2. And the y-coordinate would be 2 minus 4 over 2, it's negative 1. 2 and negative 1 is number 1. Of course, you could have done negative 2, and 4. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And if this is 4, 5, 6, 7. No, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Is that, so that must be 5 then. Okay, I can't count even. Yeah, and negative 7. Again, if someone selected A and C, we would say x equals the midpoint, negative 2 plus 6 is 4 over 2 is 2. And the y is 5 minus 7 is negative 2 over 2 is negative 1. So whether you pick XZ or AC and take the midpoint, you will get the same result. In a right triangle, the acute angles have the relationship cosine of this angle equals sine of that angle. We know that the sine and the cosine of complementary angles are equal. So for example, you say sine 30 is 1/2 and cosine 60 is 1/2. 45 and 45, you get same thing, root 2 over 2 and root 2 over 2. So we know that these two angles, the measure of them should be 90 degrees. So it's number 2, 5x plus 7 plus 3x plus 3 equals 90. Of course, they are not supplementary angle, they are not equal. That's not, nobody told you that's an isosceles triangle. So this is the answer. Next one, in the diagram below, circle O has a radius of 8 centimeter and a central angle measures 140 degrees. What is the length of arc AB? We know that arc AB should equal R theta in radians, right? 3, so 8, not 3, why did I say 3? Times 140 pi over 180. I can simplify the 0 and the 0, 7 and 9. So 56 pi over 9. 19.54 to the nearest centimeter, so it should be 20. Alrighty. Lucy wants to use a wagon to move a pile of sand in as few trips as possible. The pile of sand can be modeled by a cone as shown below. It has a radius of base of 3.5 and a height of also 3.5. If the wagon holds 5 cubic feet of sand, what is the fewest number of trips? So basically, you find the volume and divide it by 5, since each load can be 5 cubic feet. And you round up. Usually, of course, there is a pi in it, so it won't be an integer number. So you round up every time. If you get 4.5, you can't have 4 loads, would not be enough. But 5, you will have some extra, right? So you would say, actually, the number of trips is the ceiling. Well, we are going to find it and then round up. The volume of this of the sand is 1/3 pi r squared times height, or 3.5 cubed. Well, you can say 1/3 pi times r 3.5 square, which is r squared, times the height, which is also 3.5, and then you divide by 5 because each trip Lucy can bring 5 cubic feet. Alrighty, so that would be 3.5 cube times pi over 15. 8.979, meaning 9 trips. 9 is number 4. That's the least number of trips. Okay, so far we haven't encountered any tough problem. In the diagram below, segment BD and AE intersect at C, and AB and DE are drawn. If AB is parallel to DE, which statement is not always true? When we do that, we know that these two triangles are similar, okay? These two angles are equal, or the measure of them is equal. There are two congruent angles because they are vertical angles. These are two parallel lines, so this angle and that angle are alternate interior, and so are these two. So the first one says angle ABC and angle EDC are congruent. Yes, they are. Always, they will always be. Angle ACB and ECD, yes, they are vertical angles, so they are always congruent. Triangle ABC and triangle CED are similar, yes. And they are congruent, no. Why? Because instead of drawing DE here, I could have drawn it here. So these two triangles would have been similar, but definitely not congruent, right? So because you can draw this line anywhere, so it's not always true that they are congruent. Okay, the face of a shed is modeled below. So you have a rectangle here of base 10, and a triangle of height 6. And this triangle is an isosceles triangle, okay? Since it's an isosceles triangle, then the vertical line, that's that line from the vertex, would bisect the base, meaning if this is 10, then this would be 5 feet, and that would be 5 feet. And they want the measure of angle EGD to the nearest degree. Okay, so we know that if you call that angle theta, tangent theta is opposite over adjacent is 1.2. So theta would be arctan 1.2 in degrees. So make sure that we are in degrees. Yes, we are. So I'm going to say arctan 1.2. It's 50.2 degrees, meaning number 3. That's the nearest degree is 50. Of course, we know arctan of 1 is 45, so it's slightly more than 45. So if I get 40 or something, I know I pressed the wrong button. Okay, number 11. Triangles ABC, A prime, B prime, C prime, and A double prime, B double prime, and C double prime are plotted here. Which sequence of transformation maps ABC to A prime, B prime, C prime, and then maps this one to A double prime, B double prime, C double prime? So first of all, I have a translation, right? That's the first one. So I can exclude 2 and 3. Okay. Is that translation followed by a rotation or a line reflection? We know that if I have a line reflection, that since this was like 2 and -2, and this is -2 and 2, then the reflection, if it would be about the y equals x. But if it were around y equals x, this point C prime would be here. It wouldn't be up there, right? Do you see that a mirror image of A prime, B prime, C prime, if you have a mirror here, the point C prime would be here, or C double prime. It wouldn't be up there, so definitely it's a rotation. We know that in a rotation, if you rotate twice, what would happen is if you pick the coordinate of any point, if the x is positive and the y is negative, you will get the same x and y, but now the x would be negative and the y would be positive, right? So if this point is 2 and -6, I expect its image to be -2 and +6. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yes, it is. So it's 1. Yeah, rotation. It's not reflection. A line contains the points, this and that, an equation of a line perpendicular. So we have to calculate the slope of this line, take the negative reciprocal of it to find the slope of the normal. The slope here can be, for example, y2 minus y1 divided by x2 minus x1. It's 3/4. So m perpendicular would be -4/3. The slope is not 3/4 or -3/4. It's not 4/3. It is -4/3. So it must be 4. Right? And of course, here you see x minus 3 and y plus 1. So we are using this point, a point slope formula, and it's number 4. Okay, I think it's going to take a good 40 minutes. Alrighty, we are halfway probably. In the diagram below of right triangles, day and night, AD equals DY equals 6. So it's an isosceles triangle. And since they are similar, then this one also is an isosceles triangle. And if this is 16, what is the length of TN? Well, Tn and Ni is the same. So we can, if we say Tn is x, then x squared, applying Pythagoras theorem. So the Pythagorean theorem would be x squared plus another x squared. So it's an isosceles triangle. equals 16 squared, or 2x squared equals 16 squared. 2x squared equals 256. I divide by 2 both sides. I get x squared equals 128. So x equals the square root of 128. 128 is 64 times 2. Root of 64 is 8. So 8 square root of 2, which is 2. Okay, next one. The volume of a sphere. I know the volume of a sphere is 4/3 pi r cubed. They tell you it's 333. So to the nearest tenth of a centimeter, the diameter is 4/3 pi, first of all, times r cubed. That's r cubed. So r cubed equals 3 times that is 999 over 4 pi. So r would be the cube root of 999 over 4 pi. And then the diameter would be 2 times that. So we do it on a single step instead of calculating r and then multiplying by 2. So we say 2, and then the cube root, we can make it power 1/3. So 999 divided by, and then between parentheses, be careful or else it will divide by 4 and then multiply by pi raised to the power of 1/3. 8.6. So it's number 3. And sure enough, they give you half of that, which is the r. So if you don't read and you think they are asking for the radius, you would erroneously pick that. So be careful when you read the problem. Line BDS and MAVR so are parallel. Okay, parallel. And then AE is perpendicular to TV. If angle STE is 38 degrees, what is the measure of VAE? Okay. Since these two lines are parallel, then angle STV and EVA are congruent, right? Interior, alternate interior, right? So if this is 38, this is 38. We learned, I'm sorry, I learned the angles and the relationship in French back then, and we call it alterne interne. So ulterior, interior, it's like a little confusing. So sometimes I misspell it or mispronounce it. Okay, anyway, if this angle is 38 and this angle is 90, then their sum has to be 180, meaning the sum of these two should be 90. So this angle would be 90 degrees minus 38 degrees, which is 52 degrees, and that's number 2. Okay. Number 16, segment RAZ has endpoints R and Z. Okay, we can say anything if this is positive and positive. So let's say this is 6, 6, and this is negative 12. No, I'm gonna confuse myself now. Why? Because they say if point A divides RZ, notice this is Z and this is R. I drew it backwards. They start with R. So such that RA over AZ is 5 to 4. What are the coordinates of A? In fact, if you have watched one of my previous videos about how to divide any line into any proportion, you would see that I said X equals, I'm going to say the coordinates of the first point. In this case, I'm using Z as the first point, not R. So I drew the positive and up to the right and the negative and negative, down, left and down to the left. But anyway, it doesn't matter. You can pick any point to start with. So for example, if I pick negative 12, I'm going to multiply it by the further proportion, which is 5. And then I'm going to add the second point and multiply it by the further proportion, which is 4. and then I divide by 5 plus 4. So I get negative 60 plus 24 over 9 equals negative 36 over 9 equals negative 4. When I do the y, I do the same thing. I take the closest point, which is negative 3, multiply it by 5, which is the further proportion. And then I'm going to add 6 times the further proportion, again 4 over 5 plus 4. So I get negative 15 plus 24 over 9 equals 9 over 9 equals 1. So negative 4 and 1 is that point. Excuse me. In triangle ABC below, points D and E are on segments or sides AB and CB, respectively, such that DE is parallel to AC. If BD is 9 and DA is 3, EC is 4, what is BC? These two triangles, BDE and BAC, are similar. So what I know is that BD over BA must be equal to BE over BC. Excuse me. BD is 9. BA is 12. BE is unknown. And BC is BE plus 4. Oh my God. So if I cross multiply, I will get 12 BE equals 9 BE plus 9 times 4. Subtracting 9 BE from both sides, I will get 3 BE equals 36. Meaning, if I divide by 3, I get BE equals 12. Of course, they put the 12 as one of the answer, but notice they didn't ask the length of BE. They asked about the side BC. If BE is 12 and EC is 4, then this guy is 16, and the answer is 4, not 2. And I bet you many students will pick 12 because when they did the math, they will get 12. Okay. Triangle ABC is mapped onto A prime, B prime, C prime after a sequence of rigid motions. Which statement is always true? AB is parallel to segment AB is parallel to segment A prime, B prime? Not necessarily, because I can produce, for example, AB is something like that, and then I reflect over the y, it would become something like that. So it's not parallel. Or if I rotate 90 degrees, it's not parallel, so not necessary. AB is congruent to A prime, B prime, definitely. If it's a rigid motion, meaning I'm not stretching or shrinking, then yes, these two will always be congruent. The measure of angle A is the same as the measure of B prime. What do they have to do with each other? These are two different, that's the image of B, and A and B are not congruent unless it's a maybe isosceles or equilateral triangle. The orientation of ABC is the same. No, of course, if we rotate or reflect that, it won't be. So that's an easy one. It's 2. Okay. 6 more. Number 19, what are the coordinates of the center of the length and the length of the radius of this circle, completing the square? That's an easy one. I can, just by looking, I see that the center is at -8 and positive, I'm sorry, at +8 and -10, right? So it would be either 1 or 3. Let's do it. So x squared minus 16x, I leave a blank, plus y squared plus 20y, I leave a blank, equals 155. -155, I'm sorry. To complete the square, I divide by 2 to get -8. and square, I get positive 64, positive 64. I divided 20 by 2, I get 10, square is 100, and 100. Here I will have 164 minus 155 is 9. This would be x minus 8 square plus y plus 10 square. So the coordinates, the center is at 8 and negative 10. And the radius is the square root of that because that's r square. So the correct answer would be 3, not 2, not 1. Okay, so it's 8 and negative 10, but be careful. It's x minus h square plus y minus k square equals r square, not r. Again, I've seen this error committed many times. 20, state populations and land areas from the 2020 US Census are shown in the table below. Which list shows the state population densities, meaning population per area, in order from smallest to largest? Well, I don't know why this has to do with geometry. So I'm going to divide 3,605,944 divided by 4842. I get 744.7. Okay, 9288994 divided by 7354 is 1,263.1. 2201,700. Oh, I'm sorry, it's not 700, it's 249. I picked the fourth line. Divided by 47,126. 428.66. And the last one is 13,002,700 divided by 44,743. It's 290. Okay, so Pennsylvania first. Well, that's the only one that has Pennsylvania first. Then New York, yes. Then Connecticut, and the highest is New Jersey, so it's number 1. Line T is represented by the equation y equals to x minus 1 if the line is dilated by a scale factor of 3 centered at the origin. Which equation represents the image of line T after the dilation? Well, since it's dilated from the origin, the slope would be the same. The slope would be always 2. Okay? So it's one of these two. Notice that if y-intercept is 1 and you inflate or dilate it 3 times, now this line would have a y-intercept of 3, so it would be 2x minus 3. Here is the line. I mean, you don't have to draw it. I'm just showing you. The negative 1 is here, and the slope is 2. So every time you move 1 to the right, you go 2 up. So at 1, you get, so 0 and negative 1. This is 1 and 1, and so on and so forth. This is the line, something like that. Well, when you dilate with the center of dilation is here, this distance 1 will become 3. So that would be 0 and negative 3, right? So the y-intercept is 3. You can just, and then again, this one would be at 3 and 3. And you can see that if you do the slope, you will get a slope of 2 and the y-intercept of negative 3. The last page. No, yeah, there are 24. Quadrilateral ABCD is a parallelogram. Which additional statement is sufficient to prove that ABCD is a rhombus? AB is congruent to CD. No, that's for a parallelogram, so it's not that. AD is perpendicular to BC. No, that's not a proof because it may be square. AD is congruent. What? said AB. Oh, I'm sorry, ABCD. So it says AD is perpendicular to BC. How? AD is perpendicular to BC? No, that doesn't make any sense. AD is congruent to DC. Yes. Angle ADC is congruent to angle ABC. No, that's for a parallelogram, so it has to be this one. Okay. So it would be like a parallelogram, but all four sides are equal. So that would be a rhombus. In a right triangle ABC, angle ABC is 90 degrees, BD is perpendicular to ADC. If AD is 3 and CD is 12, the length of AB is. The length of AB is AD times AC. And the length of BC is CD times CA. And the length of BD, square of course, is AD times DC. So in this case, we say AB square equals 3 square times 15 square. Three times, why square? Why did I say square? 3 times 15 equals 45. So AB is square root of 45. 45 is 9 times 5. Root 9 is 3, so 3 is square root of 5, so it should be number 3. Finally, in triangle GBT, GXM, BXR, and TXE are drawn such that point X is the centroid. If it's the centroid, meaning this is the point of intersection of the three medians, and we know for which statement is always true, mx over gx is 1/3. No, it should be 1/2, so wrong. Number 2, tx over ex is 2 to 1. Yes, that is correct. Just to make sure, bx is congruent to rx. No, of course not. And tm is congruent to tr. No, of course not. So that's number 2. And that concludes the part 1 of the test. I don't know if I will complete it tomorrow or we'll break it onto 2 days, because I think, well, we'll see tomorrow. I hope this was easy for you to follow. And if you see something that doesn't make sense to you or you didn't understand, please don't hesitate to let me know by sending me a comment. And I will get back to you as soon as possible. Otherwise, I will see you tomorrow and we'll continue the rest of the test. Thank you for your attention and watching, and have a great day. Bye.